Now, when the Minister gets her breath, we call on Deputy Rabbitte, who has 4 minutes.
Thank you, Laska Hirlock. Thank you, Minister, for coming in here this evening. And the reason I've asked you to come in relation to this topical issue is to address the recent findings by the ESRI that disadvantaged parents are twice as likely to have unmet childcare needs as those in better off groups. And I suppose this is on the back of a report that came out just in the last number of days, where the document examined data collected by the CSO in 5,200 households or 13,000 individuals. And the analysis in the paper uses weights designed by the CSO in order to ensure that sample is representation of the population. And the survey looked at whether households with persons in need of care defined as children under the age of 12 years of age and people with older or have a disability which requires care for them. The survey then looked at whether these households have an unmet need with regard to those care arrangements, i.e. the households that need more than they are currently in receipt of. The survey found, which I found shocking, Minister, was that 24.5% of lone parent households have unmet needs, and 35% of the households experiencing deprivation also have an unmet childcare need. Between about 70 to 90% of the people with unmet needs report that reasons as inability to afford formal childcare. Again, lone parents emerge as the group facing the worst situation, with 91% of them reporting that they cannot afford the required formal childcare. Minister, when we talk about lone parents, sometimes people think that we're talking about people who are just completely in social welfare. That is not the case. A lot of lone parents are parents who are going out to work and they are struggling to meet that need of childcare. And I suppose we've had numerous reports in relation to your ESRI and everything else, where we all know that the cost of childcare in this country is incredibly crippling. But it's incredibly difficult for parents who are single parents trying to rear their family and cannot afford childcare costs. So I suppose the fact that the Affordable Childcare Scheme under your good self was announced there in 2016, and we had hoped for it in 2017, but due to the ICT requirements and everything else, it hasn't just developed yet. So, Minister, what comfort have we for these parents who find themselves in the gap, that they have unmet needs? So we have children who are not actually accessing childcare services. While they might be accessing the ECCE, the parent themselves is not able to let them into full-time childcare because they can't afford it, which has the negative effect of affording them the opportunity to return to work. And the vicious circle starts, or the vicious circle to try and get out of, is not being enabled. So I'm just wondering, with the new Affordable Childcare Scheme, Minister, can you explain to the lone parents living in here how they themselves will be able to access the whole system, and how will they find it more favourable to themselves? And I know it's income-based and everything else, but the lone parents at the bottom end of the threshold, they're finding it very, very difficult to break through. And one of the main factors is the affordable childcare. Thank you.
Minister's 4 minutes.
Thank you, Deputy. I want to thank you for raising this important issue for discussion today. Providing a childcare infrastructure that enables accessible, affordable, quality childcare for all is a cornerstone of my work as Minister for Children and Youth Affairs since 2016, which is the basis of the research report, data from 2016. So the years since that time, and since I've been in office as Minister for Children and Youth Affairs, I think have seen an unprecedented increase in investment in key early learning and care and school-age childcare areas, with an annual investment now rising to €574 million, a 170% increase since 2015. And these increases have allowed us to introduce measures designed to be a major step towards accessible, affordable for everyone, and quality early learning and care and school-age childcare after decades of underinvestment by successive governments. The measures I've introduced include increases of up to 50% in our targeted subsidies since 2016, and the introduction of a universal childcare subvention payment of up to $1,040 per annum for the care of children aged from 6 months to the first eligible point of entry of the Early Childhood Care and Education Program. We've also doubled the free preschool ESRI scheme to enable parents access to 2 years instead of 1 since the time of the report. These changes are waypoints towards our goal to deliver genuine, affordable, accessible early learning and care and school-age childcare. And the launch of the new affordable childcare scheme this coming October, as the Deputy knows, will alter the landscape of childcare in Ireland. It will provide and continue to provide financial supports for parents, establish a sustainable platform for investment in the childcare sector for decades to come, and crucially allow us to continue to invest in giving our children the best start in life. In December, I signed regulations that will provide for the first time for the registration of school-age childcare services with TUSLA, and these regulations came into force yesterday on the 18th of February. That means that parents of school-age children will be eligible to apply for subsidies under the Affordable Childcare Scheme from the outset. And under the measures included in Budget 2019, I was able to further enhance the Affordable Childcare Scheme by raising the upper and lower thresholds for income-related subsidies, meaning that maximum subsidy rates will now be paid to all families with a net annual income of up to €26,000, up from €22,700. And these increases will ensure that an even greater number of families will benefit from the highest subsidy rates available under the scheme once it is launched. It's also important to note, particularly in the context of our discussions here this evening, that the Childcare Support Act 2018, which is the legislative basis for the new scheme, specifies 5 statutory bodies which may make agreements in relation to referral procedures for free or additional childcare for children with the greatest level of need. And as the Deputy may be aware, these are known as sponsor arrangements. And I would also like to highlight that first 5 government's 10-year strategies for babies, young children and their families that was launched in November 2018. It's a fundamental concept. It provides a progressive universalism which seeks to strengthen the support and services for all babies, young children and families, and put in place additional measures for those with additional needs. So I'm committed to continuing to radically reform childcare in this country for the benefit of children, families, women, our society, and our economy. And I believe that when the ESRI or any other research body does a similar piece of work utilizing SILC CSO data from 2017, 2018, or 2019, that conclusions regarding the childcare needs of disadvantaged parents will have changed significantly for the better.
Minister, 2 minutes, Deputy Rabbitte.
And I hope so too, Minister. And I hope so too. But I suppose in your contribution, and why I welcome all the good work you've done, my concern still goes back to the lone parent, the one-income family. And I suppose that is the basis of why I've raised this question this evening. And you understand that perfectly well. When you have a 2-income family, 2 incomes coming into a household, it makes childcare costs a little bit less of a burden than just the 1 income coming into to a house. And I suppose going forward, I wonder, Minister, when you're in getting ready for budget next year, are you making any provisions in relation to the single-income family? The likes of the trainee nurse or the trainee beautician who has a child that needs access to care, and if they can't afford it, and if they're on a particular, as part of their career development, or if they're in education, will there be a mechanism there for us to be able to support them, to encourage them into the workforce, while their income will be below a particular threshold, but they need to access full-time childcare? There is a need within, I think, that for consideration to be given to, and I would love to hear your response to that. Also, Minister, in relation to the campaign that you plan to launch, the mygov.ie, and making people aware of why the need to sign up to it and the need of the using of, and how it will prohibit them if they're not registered on time, and the fact that we have so many families who are not registered on mygov.ie, that your department and its rollout campaign, how it's going to be communicated to encourage them to do it. And I think it's important that that process is done and people have signed up in advance, because if we wait till next September for this to happen, the system will just crash out, Minister. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy. Yes, absolutely, all the questions and issues you raised there. First of all, in relation to, as you say yourself, in terms of the single-parent family, I think what I'm saying back to you is they were precisely a key group that I had in mind in relation to the movement towards the affordable childcare scheme. And as the Deputy well knows, that even though we don't have the full scheme ready to launch in terms of the streamlining of all the different targeted subsidies, that from the beginning of my ministry and the initial budget that I negotiated, I did get additional targeted subsidies, especially for families who have least, in order to get most in terms of their childcare needs. In addition to that universal payment, if single parents have a child, an early born child as well, for a universal payment. So I think what I would say back to the Deputy is that from the very beginning, a lot of the political approach that I was taking in terms of designing the affordable childcare scheme, which is really simply to bring together the various schemes that are already there, so that they will be easier to administer. But prior to that, as the Deputy knows, we've already increased significantly the targeted subsidies, especially for those families who have the least amount of income, and that they receive the most. So that's why I'm saying, when future research is done for the years of 2017, 18, and 19, I think it will demonstrate a different picture. Secondly, though, you ask about in terms of as we move forward, can there be something particular targeted for those one-parent families? I think two things I would say. I think in the context of the overall plan is, in terms of the overall family income and household income, that's probably sufficient, and those who have least, again, will get most. But as the Deputy is aware, in terms of the First Five strategy, we're also looking at maybe developing a model that offers a more DESH-type approach to early learning and care centres, where a lot of, I suppose, where particularly families, one-parent families, maybe be able to access that are particularly in need of that. And your questions in relation to the information campaign are excellent. We're working on that as we speak. It's going to be, we hope to initiate it in the next month. And all of those aspects, particularly the mygov.ie, are absolutely crucial for people to be aware of in order, especially lone parent families, in order to access the subsidies.
Okay.